Yeah, I got the same shirt on. Relax. I'm shooting two videos today for you. It's for you. It's all for you guys. So, I mean, I don't have to be doing this. Actually, I kind of do because it's my job, but whatever. Moving on from Bo Burnham to Jim Jeffries. Um, Again, like this summer course is awesome, but it sucks because I really have to like pick and choose the comedians that we watch, and like it gets difficult to do because there's so many. I wish we had. I wish we had more time. Um, Even in the like a full semester, I go through that, but the summer is more of a crunch where it's like, well, I gotta show them this comedian, and I gotta show them this comedian. So you got Jeff. You got. I chose Jeffries for you, um, and he's another guy. Like again, there's something at stake, right? His comedy's about something. It's funny and it's about something. Like this doesn't. I hope you see that it's not um, impossible to do this, right? I hope you see that it's becoming um, increasingly more relevant to do comedy that's meaningful. Um, I hope you're seeing that. Why? I hope you're understanding that if you're going into this business, this industry, why wouldn't you do this kind of comedy where it's like about something, right? Like we talked in one of these. I talked one of these videos about responsibility versus opportunity. Um, I don't think it's a comedian's responsibility to educate us or to be meaningful. Like responsibility is a different word. Like it's not TV's responsibility to raise us or whatever. It's not a comedian's responsibility to do these things. But at the same time, they have the opportunity to do that. So why would you not take the opportunity? Um, you have this, you have a bigger platform than most. Um, People are listening to you. You have the the fewest obstacles to the truth um, when you're stand up. You're not bound by any larger entity, whether corporate or governmental or religious or whatever it is or media. Um, so why wouldn't you? I think Jim Jeffries is like realizes that, and he does. Uh, there's a couple of things about him. The gun control stuff really went viral. Like that's what kind of put him on the map on a bigger scale. Um, and yeah, those bits, and then I think I can't remember what I had you guys watch, but his follow up to that was more about like sort of extending that conversation about gun control and stuff like that. So that kind of put him on the map and made him, a name. And since then, like here's like this is a testament to the kind of humor and comedy that I've been sort of preaching this whole session. Jim Jeffries has a show called I Don't Know About That, where he brings in a guest who tells him about something he doesn't know. So, if I haven't said it before, I should have, but comedy, there's an open mindedness to comedy. There's a humility to comedy. This admission that you don't have all the answers, that you're searching for them. This admission that, I'm no better than any of you in the audience, right? There's a humility and an open-mindedness that comes with being in comedy. For the most part, there's always exceptions, but for the most part. And like, if I had to list the top 5 things that are plaguing our culture at large across political lines, religious lines, racial lines, whatever it is, the top 2 would probably be lack of humility and lack of open-mindedness to what the other side has to say or whatever it is. Those 2 things. No one's humble. No one. And our election of Trump is, I think, really an emblem of that. Like, he's the least humble and open-minded person. The least. And he became, we said, yeah, you represent us, right? Being wrong is the worst thing that you can be. So even if we refuse to admit that we're wrong about virtually everything, even stupid things. Like, we don't listen to any opinion outside of our closed little space, whatever that is. So we're not open-minded enough, and we're not humble enough. And those 2 things would be. So here, Jim Jeffries has a show which is literally admitting that he is both of those things. He is both open-minded and humble. I don't know about that. Don't know. Just humble. To say you don't know something is pretty humble. And wanting to learn about it is being open-minded. So, like, I think that, he also had a show on Comedy Central, the Jim Jeffries Show, which was kind of like a Daily Show type satire thing. And as Logan mentioned, he has his own show in the same vein of Louis and Marin, which are great shows, called Legit. So, like, he's just putting this out there, like, just being humble, being open-minded will get you much further than the opposite. Will get us all much further than the opposite. So that's a big thing for me, with not just Jim Jeffries, but comedy in general. He talks, most of this video is going to focus on the gun control stuff, because, like I said, it's some of his best stuff. It's what really put him on the map. It's that kind of thing. And he says what a lot of comedians say. He's just like, especially concerning gun control, like, we get it. You want to have guns, but stop with the bullshit arguments, right? Stop with the, oh, it's to protect my family. He does that whole protect my family, and I think was it Aaron? One of you guys, a couple of you guys mentioned, like, well, the responsible gun owner puts it in a safe. Is the murderer gonna just let you go? Hold on, let me go get my gun out. Like, just say you want guns because you like guns. Like, that's it. But don't hide behind the Second Amendment and, like, all of these kind of bullshit arguments about it. And I think it's the same for anything. We've become a culture that loves to create bullshit arguments to sort of defend our sort of lack of our lack of thought about these things, you know. Yeah, that that's where I think a lot of the left has a problem with the gun controls. Like, come on, like let's really have a discussion about this. Not that the left has all the answers about it by any means, but um, you know, um, Logan talked about this idea that it's 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 important that Jim Jeffries is doing this stuff from his Australian perspective or his outsider's perspective. And a lot of people would say, you know, fuck this guy. What does he know? Like he doesn't get a say. You know, that's a lot of critics of, you know, Jim Jeffries and anybody from outside looking in when they probably have at least a less biased perspective. You know, I think like Jimmy Carr, who's a big British comedian, or Ricky Gervais is a perfect example. Like a lot of people are like, why do we care what he has to say? Well, what he has to say is probably more. Um, it's less biased, right? He's not going to be like have to defend America with every word, you know. Yeah, so like some people disagree with the whole. It's good to hear an outside perspective, um, but I'm not one of those people. Like I think it is important, and not only that he's from an outsider, as it were, but he's from Australia, so he has, and a lot of people love to poke holes in um, that Australian argument where they had one mass shooting, they literally banned all the guns, they got rid of all the guns, and they haven't had one since. Like that's somehow oversimplifying what it would be like if we did that here. Um, and that might be true, but there's probably somewhere in the between Australia and our gun policy that might work and be a little bit more productive, but what do I know? Yeah, when I don't know if he said this or not, but when logic starts to sound crazy or hilarious, we're in trouble. And, you know, the whole Trump thing that's what he did. In fact, he he was actively trying to make logic sound crazy, right? Um, that was one of his moves, as it were. Um, but that whole idea um, is an interesting way to look at it, and it's pretty true. Um, what is that? First and Second Amendment, 10%. I don't know. Some of my notes are sketchy at best. But yeah, he brings this. I wrote this question down watching him. Like, why is America basically a 50-50 proposition? It's like now it's almost literally like every single thing. It's like half of us are over here and half of us are over here. Like, what kind of country is that? Like, what? I get we're not always going to agree, but I feel like now we're disagreeing just for the sake of it. If you hear about a man murdering 4 dogs in the news, it'll be me. Yeah, it's I've lost my thought now. This idea that we have to play to this sort of, we have to dumb everything down, right? Playing to the 1% of idiots, like this really small group that kind of is dictating the way. Stash! Shut up! This fucking dog. Um, it's like the movie. You guys seen the movie Idiocracy? If you haven't, you should, because it's fantastic, and it's sort of this. I mean, it predates. It kind of forecasts a lot of the cultural erosion that we've had over the years, and um, it's just, if you're playing to the lowest common denominator, like that's a slippery slope to just, kind of accepting mediocrity or less than mediocrity. I love the stuff when he's talking about hate. You can't defeat hate with hate, right? Love beats hate pretty much every time. And you know, don't don't be the asshole, right? Like that's kind of this theme that kind of runs through his comedy. It's like, when you're being the asshole. Don't be the asshole, right? And this idea that hate doesn't, you can't defeat hate with hate. Love beats hate, right? Um, it's just, it's, it's just true, right? Like, I think you can, and we're pretty good. We people are pretty good at, I think, reading other people, um, whether we know it or not. And this idea that just hating someone back, I don't know, it's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time and energy, and it's just not productive, right? Um, we all kind of get sucked into it, but this idea that hate can't defeat hate is, I don't know. That's a biggie for me. Um, I like that. He talks about freedom. Um, he talks about freedom kind of in the way that Carlin talked about rights. You remember that? Um, you know, questioning the the accuracy of the statement. Like, what do we do with our freedom? Right? Are we really free, or is that kind of breaking down? Is our freedom even breaking down without us even knowing it? And he's talking about he it kind of mirrors Carlin's whole bit about rights, right? Everybody says we have rights. Well, if they're God-given rights, like then why does every country have different ones? Why are they all a different number of rights? Why don't some people have any rights? Like that kind of thing. Um, it's a similar concept. He's just talking about freedom, and it's a corollary to it almost. And I one of your paper topics was based on this idea that, or this realization that I had, that comedians made me rethink everything in my life, and everything that I was taught or told, like growing up, when I became, when I sort of started thinking about those things and why I believe those things, it's and listening to comedians talk about those things, I was like, wait, this makes more sense to me than the bullshit I've been told. And most of that, a lot of it, a big part of it, especially was religion. Religion was a thing that I just did not. I was kind of in this like, I was in like a kind of a culty thing. It's, yeah, like cult light, kind of. And so it was, Jesus and Bible and all this other stuff. And I started listening to comedians doing bits about religion, and Jim Jeffries I would hear long after, but just a lot of his religious stuff, and Ricky Gervais and Carlin and things like that, just like really have helped shape that. And I mentioned the atheist priest, right? Comedians are nothing more than atheist priests. So just this idea that comedy um, made me rethink everything. This idea that questions are cancer to religion, right? Once you start poking the bear, you start being like, wait a minute, what now? And I've had arguments with my parents over the years where I'm just like, they're still kind of super Jesus-y. I'm just like, any questioning about any of it is an immediate brick wall, right? Defensive, and you sort of you move rationality to the side just for this, just for this conversation. And he brings up the whole Santa thing, those kinds of, and I know I'm getting kind of off track, but like some of this stuff, you might not have seen it. He does this really, some of the older stuff, he does this really big rant on religion. And that's kind of what these notes are about. But still, he brings up the whole idea: how can you not believe in Santa but believe in God, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, and he brings up this idea that we're a pick and choose culture, right? We pick the stuff that works for us, and we push away the stuff that doesn't. Especially with the Bible. It's like, oh well, the Bible says this, so that's what we do. But then the Bible also says this, but you don't do that, right? We love to pick and choose, just even across, not just religiously, but with the law and with just everything, government and things like that. We're like, oh, this works for me, but this doesn't. But then we hold these things to be sort of holier than thou, I guess, specifically with religion. But he's just that stuck out with me. Questions are cancer to religion. Questions are cancer to most establishment entities, right? When you start poking at like capitalism, corporate America, start asking questions, yeah, everything starts to erode. Government, same thing. But we need to be asking more questions, right, and things like that. So he's not here for you. He's here. Yeah. Anyway, I'm seriously gonna kill this dog. your comments, Tyler, Derek, both mentioned this idea that, and not just you two, but those two, a couple others, how simple the his comedy was, right? How simple was it? Maybe not the word I would use, but it's a testament to the way comedy can provide access to ideas and discourse that we would normally not engage, right? Like that's what he does. He takes this issue that is really complex and sort of fraught with um, fraught with diverse opinions and things like that, and really breaks it down. Like, here's what we're talking about. Like, that's what a lot of comedians do with a lot of big issues, right? Comedy provides the access to people like us who might not be super political or super into social justice or super into economics or whatever it is. Like, we don't know the jargon. Comedians will take it and distill it down to its sort of most digestible, right? And a lot of people say that that process is demeaning to the information or the argument or the issue, but I disagree greatly with that. And you guys sort of bringing up that idea, like, it's really simple. Yes, it is. And most comedians have the ability to take these complex issues and simplify them, which allows us, again, to think about things that we probably wouldn't think about in ways that we wouldn't have thought about them. Like, that's my big takeaway with that, right? And Tyler getting robbed twice in Rochester, in the Rock, in Rochacha. That's not good, bro. I thought you were gonna say you're from like Detroit or something, but the 585, that's not good. Um, Logan brought up Jim Jeffries show legit, which is good. The foreigner thing, which I talked about. Um, um, and you also mentioned, you know what? I'm going to pull it up so I don't butcher it. You mentioned booty. The comedians we have previously examined all craft their observational jokes as someone who is a participant in the political systems and cultural processes that they criticize. I don't, I do agree with that, except for Carlin, right? Carlin's whole thing was, I'm out, right? I don't vote anymore. I don't want any part of any of this process. He talks about he wants to be this outside observer who just comments on it, which is basically what Jeffries, Gervais, like those, other comedians are. He wants that perspective. I don't have a dog in the fight, right? So yeah, I agree with that, except for Carlin. Like, Carlin was kind of um, ahead of his time with that. Like, he talks literally about, take it to the freak show, and I just I'm out. I'm out of all of it. And then, I mentioned this in here, um, the idea of making honest arguments, like why are we doing this back and forth, where you know you hide behind Second Amendment and protect my family and all these things that sound great, but that's bullshit. Like, stop making bullshit arguments. So yeah, that's Jimmy J. Hope you guys enjoyed him. Keep the comments coming. Only a week left. Peace.